killed 7 men.
Yes,
and
you
I'm
did.
asking you what got you to kill the 7 men.
And I'm telling you because the cops let me keep killing them, Nick. Don't you get?
This is the notorious Ted Bundy, who was charged with multiple murders in Florida. Theodore Robert Bundy, known as Ted Bundy, was an infamous American serial killer who terrorized the nation during the 1970s. With a chilling blend of charm and deception, Bundy kidnapped, sexually assaulted, and murdered numerous young women and girls, leaving a trail of fear and devastation in his wake. Despite initially denying his crimes, he confessed to 30 murders between 1974 and 1978.
For the record, you are guilty of killing many women and girls.
Yes. Yes, that's true.
However, the true number of his victims remains unknown and is believed to be much higher. Bundy possessed a disturbing charisma and handsome appearance, which he skillfully employed to gain the trust of his victims.
Will you marry me?
Yes.
And I do hereby marry you.
And society. He would approach women in public places, often pretending to be injured or assuming the role of an authority figure, luring them into his trap. Once he had them under his control, he would render them unconscious and transport them to a different location, where he would ultimately kill them. Shockingly, Bundy would revisit the decomposing bodies, engaging in perverse acts and even collecting grisly souvenirs. Bundy's reign of terror was punctuated by his arrest in 1975 for kidnapping and attempted assault in Utah. This led to him being linked to a growing number of unsolved homicides across multiple states. Bundy orchestrated 2 daring escapes while facing murder charges in Colorado, leading to additional assaults and murders in Florida. Eventually, he was recaptured in 1978. Subsequently, he was sentenced to death for his heinous crimes in Florida, receiving 3 death sentences in 2 separate trials.
The order that on such scheduled date that you be put to death by current of electricity sufficient to cause you immediate death.
In prison, Bundy opened up on what led to his atrocious crimes. He absolved society and his family of wrongdoing and pointed out a most unlikely influence. So how did Ted Bundy explain his murderous killing spree?
Basically, I was a normal person. I wasn't some guy hanging out at bars or in bum. I wasn't a pervert in the sense that, people look at somebody and say, I know there's something wrong with them, and just tell. I was essentially a normal person. I had good friends. I led a normal life, except for this one small but very potent, very destructive segment of it that I kept very secret, very close to myself, and didn't let anybody know about it. And it happened in stages, gradually. It doesn't necessarily, not to me at least, happen overnight. My experience with, I'd say, pornography generally, but with pornography that deals on a violent level with the sexuality, is that once you become addicted to it, and I look at this as a kind of addiction. Like an addiction, you keep craving something which is harder, something which gives you a greater sense of excitement. Until you reach the point where the pornography only goes so far. You reach that jumping off point where you begin to wonder if maybe actually doing it will give you that which is beyond just reading about it or looking at it.
On January 24, 1989, Bundy was executed at the Florida State Prison in Rayford, meeting his ultimate fate in the electric chair. After his execution, Bundy's remains were cremated and his ashes were scattered in the Cascade Range of Washington State, as specified in his will, forever obscuring the exact location of his resting place. Ted Bundy's crimes were horrible. This wasn't the only time a serial killer explained the reason for their crimes. This is Ricardo Richard Leyva Munoz Ramirez, who is facing charges for murder in California.
I didn't particularly care for people.
Richard Ramirez, known as the Night Stalker, was an American serial killer and sex offender who carried out a crime spree in California between June 1984 and August 1985. Ramirez developed an interest in Satanism and the occult and frequently used cocaine. Ramirez's crimes include burglaries, murders, attempted murders, assaults, and sexual assaults. His home invasion and murder spree terrorized the greater Los Angeles area and later the San Francisco Bay Area for 14 months. He used various weapons and murder methods, including handguns, Knives, a machete, a tire iron, and a claw hammer. Ramirez displayed extreme violence, often torturing and degrading his victims. Even experienced police officers were shocked by the violence. He would force them to profess their love for Satan or make them swear to Satan that there were no more valuables left in their homes. One of Ramirez's crimes, the murder of 9-year-old Mei Lung in San Francisco, occurred in April 1984. The police reported that she was physically abused, strangulated, sexually assaulted, and stabbed. Although this crime was not initially connected to Ramirez, his DNA matched the crime scene in 2009.
Ramirez's picture ran on front pages, and within hours, angry residents of this East LA neighborhood spotted, captured, and then severely beat Richard Ramirez as he tried to steal a car to evade police.
Ramirez's reign of terror ended when he was identified by passers-by, chased, and captured by residents in East Los Angeles after attempting to escape. Ramirez was subsequently convicted of his crimes and sentenced to death. In 1989, Ramirez was convicted of 13 counts of murder, 5 attempted murders, 11 sexual assaults, and 14 burglaries. The judge described his deeds as exhibiting cruelty, callousness, and viciousness beyond human understanding. Ramirez never expressed remorse for his crimes. In custody, Ramirez was asked about the reason behind the incessant killings, although he claimed to not know.
Why on earth would you have hurt those people? Why did you kill those people?
No comments. No comments. I cannot answer it at this time.
He later opened up on the reasons for the murders.
It comes about by circumstances and like a recipe: poverty, drugs, child abuse. But these things, contribute to a person's frustration and anger. And at some point in life, he explodes.
On June 7, 2013, Ramirez died in a California hospital from complications of B-cell lymphoma. He had a history of chronic substance abuse and chronic hepatitis C viral infection. Serial killers often provide insight into their thinking patterns. However, for Jeffrey Dahmer, it was a whole new level. This is Jeffrey Lionel Dahmer, who is facing charges for multiple homicides in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Jeffrey Dahmer, also known as the Milwaukee Cannibal, or the Milwaukee Monster, was an American serial killer and sex offender. The police said that between 1978 and 1991, Dahmer murdered and dismembered 17 males. His later murders involved necrophilia, cannibalism, and preserving body parts, often skeletons. Dahmer was caught when Tracy Edwards, one of his intended victims, managed to escape and led police officers to Dahmer's apartment. Inside, the officers found evidence, including Polaroid pictures of dismembered bodies. Dahmer resisted arrest but was eventually subdued and taken into custody. An extensive search of his apartment revealed severed heads, skulls, body parts, and preserved organs. Dahmer was charged with multiple counts of first-degree murder and faced additional charges in Ohio. He pleaded guilty to 15 counts of murder. While incarcerated, Dahmer provided a unique insight into what made him the Milwaukee Monster.
Was this about some kind of desire to keep these people with you, not to be abandoned, not to have them leave?
I think that did play into it, but there was a big element of wanting complete control over someone, total control, not having to consider their wishes, being able to keep them there as long as I wanted. That was a big part of it. Lust played a big part of it, controlling lust. Once it happened the first time, it just seemed like it had control of my life from there on in. It was a major part of my thinking from then on.
Surprisingly, Dahmer claimed that he hated killing people.
Killing that excited you, or is it what happened after the killing?
No, the killing was just a means to an end. That was the least satisfactory part. I didn't enjoy doing that. That's why I tried to create living zombies.
In 1992, he was convicted of 15 of the 16 homicides committed in Wisconsin and sentenced to 15 terms of life imprisonment. He was later sentenced to an additional life term for a homicide committed in Ohio in 1978. On November 28, 1994, Dahmer was beaten to death by Christopher Scarver, a fellow inmate at the Columbia Correctional Institution in Portage, Wisconsin. This is Aileen Carol Wournos, who is facing charges for multiple murders in Florida.
a hitchhiking hooker turning tricks from exit to exit on Florida's interstate highways.
Wournos committed several murders while working as a street prostitute along the highways of Florida from 1989 to 1990. She fatally shot and robbed not one or two, not even three, but 7 of her male clients. So what caused Aileen to go on such a murderous rampage? Well, growing up, Wournos had a troubled childhood. Her father was incarcerated at the time of her birth, and her mother abandoned her and her brother when she was just 4 years old. They were left in the care of their maternal grandparents, who had their own struggles with alcoholism. Wournos revealed that her alcoholic grandfather had sexually assaulted and beaten her during her childhood. At just 14, Wournos became pregnant after being sexually taken advantage of by a friend of her very own grandfather. She gave birth to a baby boy. Given her age, her son was immediately taken for adoption. Shortly after, she dropped out of school and was left to fend for herself. With no support system, Wournos turned to prostitution and lived a nomadic life in the woods near her old home. Fast forward to her killing spree. Wournos targeted men between the ages of 40 and 65, taking the lives of 7 individuals within just 1 year. But her reign of terror ended when she was arrested on an outstanding warrant in 1991. One of Wournos' acquaintances, Moore, agreed to help the police by obtaining a confession from her and testified against her. Here's where it gets interesting. Wournos' defense remained consistent throughout her trial. She claimed that all 7 of her murders were done in self-defense.
It's a hell of a lot of men I went through before the next jerk came along, and I used protection.
At least that's what she argued in court. That is, until investigators were able to prove the exact opposite happened for a couple of Aileen's cold murders.
It was impossible to be a self-defense argument. We were able to prove that in several of them, the men were actually running away from her. They were shot in the back. In one instance, a man was prone on the ground. His vertebrae had been severed. He was paralyzed, and she shot him in the head from a downward angle.
In court, Wournos was anything but remorseful for her actions.
Nonetheless, you killed 7 men.
Yes, you
and
did.
I'm asking you, what got you to kill the 7
And I'm
men?
telling you, because the cops let me keep killing them, Nick. Don't you get it?
With all of the evidence brought forward and the lack of sympathy or remorse that was shown from Aileen throughout the trial, there was only one thing left for the judge to do: sentence her to death. Watch how this cold-blooded murderer reacted to her sentence.
By you or your wife and kids get putting somebody who is
Wournos initially refused to take responsibility for her actions, but after spending 10 years on death row, she wrote a long letter to the Florida Supreme Court explaining her actions. Wournos stated that she hates human life and would kill again.
Robbed him, and I killed him as cold as ice. And I'd do it again, too. And I know I'd kill another person because I've hated humans for a long time. No sense in keeping me alive, because I just would absolutely kill again. I've got too much anger, too much hatred in me.
Unfortunately, Wournos' story ended sadly. After spending years on Florida's death row, she was executed via lethal injection on October 9th, 2002. However terrible you think Wournos' explanation was, Lynn Sells' reason for committing multiple murders is more outrageous. This is Tommy Lynn Sells, who is facing charges for several murders in Texas. Lynn Sells is an American serial killer known for his heinous crimes. Sells was convicted of 1 murder, but authorities believe he may have been responsible for a staggering 22 killings. Sells says he doesn't know the exact number of his victims, but claimed to have taken over 70 lives.
Billy the Kid making notches on my holster, so I know it's been a lot.
Born on June 28, 1964 in Oakland, California, Sells had a troubled upbringing. His presumed father passed away when he was just 11 years old, and tragedy struck when he and his twin sister contracted meningitis. Sadly, his sister didn't survive the illness. Following these tragic events, Sells was sent to live with his aunt in Holcomb, Missouri. However, he was later returned to his mother after she discovered that his aunt wanted to adopt him. Sells' life took a dark turn at a young age. By the tender age of 7, he was already regularly drinking alcohol thanks to his grandfather's stash. Around this time, he also formed a disturbing relationship with an adult man named Willis Clark, who Sells claimed molested him. Shockingly, Sells alleged that his mother encouraged this relationship, impacting his mental well-being. As he grew older, Sells' troubles escalated. At 10 years old, he began using narcotics. At 14, Sells became a nomad, living a transient life. One of Sells' most horrifying acts occurred December 31st, 1999, when he took the life of 13-year-old Aileen Katie Harris. Police said that he sexually assaulted her before fatally stabbing her. He also attempted to kill 10-year-old Crystal Searles. However, she miraculously survived and sought help from neighbors despite suffering a severed trachea. Thankfully, Sells was apprehended after being identified based on a sketch created from the victim's description. During interrogation, Sells explained that he killed because it gave him a rush.
First time I did a shot of dope, it was the best feeling I ever had in my life. The first time I killed somebody, it was such a rush. It was just like that shot of dope. Every time I did it, it was that rush again, and I started chasing that high.
A high that he would be chasing for the rest of his life. Sells also tried to rationalize why he murdered children.
Also killed children.
Some got killed, yes.
Now, why would that happen?
I didn't want them to live through the pain I lived through.
Sells was sentenced to death on April 3, 2014. His sentence was carried out at the Texas State Penitentiary. As a lethal dose of pentobarbital was administered, Sells took a few deep breaths, closed his eyes, and began to snore. Less than a minute later, he stopped moving, and after 13 minutes, he was pronounced dead. If you thought these explanations were shocking, you need to see this video of the most disturbing reactions of murderers getting life sentences.